Oftentimes, during childhood, we hear phrases like, hey, man up, big boys don't cry, expressed by a lot of parents or observers around. These are usually meant to serve as early corrective feedbacks to behaviors from young boys that may be considered as signs of weakness. Sadly, by the time most of such boys or young men reach adulthood, they might have effectively trained themselves to suppress emotional responses to avoid social shame. And honestly, this is very unreal. Yeah, hello there. This is Felix. I thank you again this moment for allowing me on screen, watching me this moment. I encourage you to watch this very video to the end. If you have not watched my other videos, I need you to watch them and learn a lot from them as you're about to learn from this very one. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share what you think, what you have read, what you have studied, what your personal experiences are. You may want to share with the rest of us to learn from. You are so much welcome to share all of those. And so let's get along over this period. Generally, emotional expression in men is a largely complex interplay of historical, social, and biological factors. In recent times, when conversations around mental health are shifting, many men, even with some effort made, still find themselves hitting an invisible barrier while trying to articulate their internal experiences. And so the question here is, why is it so? Why? Let's now take a very deep dive into what some of the reasons are that make most men still go through the ordeal, the challenge of not being able to name very clearly how they feel at certain points in time in their lives and in relationships. From a young age, many boys are socialized under the man box theory, which has to do with a set of very rigid expectations from society about how men should behave. Most societies often equate masculinity with being tough, as well as being able to provide adequately for all who depend on you, precisely your immediate family. This theory in itself plainly suggests that showing vulnerability as a man is a clear sign of weakness or your inability to protect those around you, being that man. Oftentimes, during childhood, we hear phrases like, hey, man up, big boys don't cry, expressed by a lot of parents or observers around. These are usually meant to serve as early corrective feedbacks to behaviors from young boys that may be considered as signs of weakness. Sadly, by the time most of such boys or young men reach adulthood, they might have effectively trained themselves to suppress emotional responses to avoid social shame. And honestly, this is very unreal. Some men unpreparedly struggle not because they are unwilling to share how they truly feel at some point. It happens this way because they actually lack the specific language or wording to confidently identify what and how they really feel at a certain point in time. In many cultures, the only acceptable and commonly expressed emotion by men is anger. As a result, other very natural, real human feelings like sadness, loneliness, or fear of something are often funneled into irritability as though they don't exist. Honestly, if a person is not understandably taught how to distinguish between anxiety and fatigue during their formative years, they may end up having to express a physiological sensation of distress without knowing exactly how to put it into meaningful words. Sadly, this is how most men have grown up to become. For many men, the persistent hesitation to speak up is actually a calculated risk assessment and management. There is often a high sense of fear that if they show deep insecurity or fear in itself, their partner may see them as less capable or weak. Worst case scenario, there is the fear of losing romantic attraction. It remains a theory, and that has actually come to be true that women admire and love brave men, men who really make them feel secure both physically and in every other way. For this reason, most men like to show off how brave they are, even when they are full of fear. Again, in very competitive work environments, emotional transparency can sometimes be perceived as a lack of professional edge or stability. And so this makes most men who find themselves in such work environments keep their struggles and emotions very private, not wanting to express them in any obvious way so as to protect their careers and personal dignity. Even though social factors are primarily dominant, there are several biological nuances playing out in how emotions are systematically processed and communicated. Some research findings suggest a wide range of differences in how the brain's hemispheres communicate. These findings have it that men may sometimes process emotions more internally or physically as tension or headaches before the linguistic centers of the brain can translate those signals into real speech, unlike women. And because of the social pressure of men having to stay or remain in control almost every time, men may usually end up experiencing a higher physiological spike in cortisol, the stress hormone, when they are forced into emotional conversations, especially what they may not be entirely ready for. This mostly results in a partial or complete shutdown or a stonewalling response as a survival mechanism. The structure of male friendships to do with how they form and progressively build on is broadly different from female structure of friendships. In fact, female friendships with men are frequently built on face to face emotional intimacy. However, men bond through shared activities such as sports, communal labor, and while on the job at their respective workplaces. This is known as side by side interaction. Even though this builds very strong bonds, it doesn't really always provide a natural opening for deep emotional disclosure, which is the difficulty of most men. For the reason of there not being a dedicated space where vulnerability in men is normalized, many men feel they are the only ones struggling, creating a cycle of isolation. In fact, all men have this difficulty. And for those who have it in large doses, it is not their fault. Basically, society and other factors made it so. For every man who wants to effectively cope or deal with the struggle of not being able to name your emotions, it requires you practicing emotional literacy. This is a concept that involves the active process of relearning how to identify and name your feelings the way you experience them. You may want to begin this process with small steps by identifying a trusted confidant or a therapist to guide you. Doing this is very, very helpful. I tell you this, my brother, watching me, reform yourself and become a lovable, real man to your wife. You deserve this. I encourage you to take very good care of yourself. Love your wife. No matter what happens, love your wife. You'll get the love back to yourself. I thank you for watching. Stay positive always, as you always do. Until I come your way another time. See you.